Hello and welcome to Beechcraft 77's Aerospace Artifacts, where we investigate the history and stories behind various air and space-related oddities posted to advertising forums such as Craigslist, eBay, and even Facebook Marketplace. Some of these may be more mundane than others, as such rarities don't present themselves very often. However, on today's episode we will discuss and investigate this seemingly ordinary 737 cockpit. We'll begin in 1966, with Boeing Aircraft unveiling the 737, the successor to the three-engined 727. An instant hit, the 737 rose in popularity worldwide and continues to be the most produced airliner ever. Built as the 93rd 737 and first flying in 1968, 737-247 serial number 19612 was delivered to Western Airlines, wearing tail number November 4515 Whiskey. It would wear this tail number with EG&G Special Projects when it was sold to them in 1980. Now, EG&G Special Projects is most often associated with the mysterious Janet flights out of McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas. They depart McCarran for what is believed to be the remote test sites in the California and Nevada deserts, such as Area 51. It would be with EG&G until late 1994, at which point it was sold to Air South, who operated the aircraft until 1995, after which it became November 903 Lima Charlie, flying for Vanguard Airlines. Vanguard typically leased their aircraft from holding companies or other airlines, but it seems to have fully owned this one outright. From their inception, they faced difficult times financially, and just 5 months later, November 903 Lima Charlie was transferred to the McDonnell Douglas Corporation and given tail number November 737 Bravo Golf. In 1997, Boeing acquired McDonnell Douglas in a controversial merger, with Boeing purchasing the intellectual property of McDonnell Douglas, and McDonnell Douglas getting to install their leadership into the Boeing corporate model. In early 1993, the United States Department of Defense was pursuing the development and acquisition of a new fighter aircraft under the program name of Joint Strike Fighter. Of the 4 designs proposed, 2 contractors would be selected in 1996. These would be none other than Lockheed Martin and Boeing, who at the time was just now finalizing the acquisition of McDonnell Douglas, who ironically lost their own bid on the JSF. Boeing and Lockheed would square off in a competition which would culminate in the construction and fly-off of 2 clean slate designs that had the most basic requirements. It had to fly, it had to land, and then it would have to do both, vertically. Both companies scrambled into action, with the vague requirements, but the knowledge that 5th generation elements would be incorporated into the production version. Their designs diverged drastically. Boeing utilized a single-piece delta wing with a large intake scoop at the very front, while Lockheed Martin created a more F-22 inspired design with a trapezoidal wing and an intake on either side of the craft's fuselage. Before Boeing could get to the fly-off phase, they first wanted to take some of their concepts airborne, though with a different aircraft. Called a test bed, it provides a design and test team with critical data that cannot be gathered meaningfully via computer simulation or other ground-based tests. The use of a test bed is not new, and has been used for decades in the aviation industry. Boeing had had previous experience with such aircraft, dating back to using Boeing B-17 Flying Fortresses after the Second World War, and more recently, the use of a Boeing 757 in their flight test program for the F-22 Raptor. Drawing upon their decades of knowledge and experience, combined with airframe availability, Boeing had a perfect candidate to create such a platform, November 737 Bravo Golf. It was converted from its normal 737 design to one with an extended nose, featuring an additional 48 inches, housing sensors and even a mission computer, which would be included with the X-32 prototype, when it would be tested in the high desert and the shores of the Chesapeake in less than 2 years' time. Called the Avionics Flying Laboratory, the converted aircraft first flew on March 26, 1999, over a year before the X-32 would, which wouldn't make its first flight until October of 2000. The sensors featured give us a clue that Boeing was fully committed into making this unholy creation America and the world's Joint Strike Fighter. Visible sensors are forward-looking infrared, or FLIR, and what appears to be 2 windows that most likely led to cameras, perhaps testing something similar to what is featured on F-35. Called the Distributed Aperture System, or DAS, Cameras are strategically placed around the aircraft and allow the system to give a pilot a 360-degree view of the world around them, even allowing the ability to look through the aircraft. It is not clear what the complete sensor suite on the testbed included, but a Boeing press release reveals that it had a form of sensor fusion, fusion being considered one of the true separators between a fourth-generation aircraft, such as the F-15 and F-18, and a fifth-generation aircraft, such as the F-22 and F-35. Fusion takes the information that is gathered by a number of sensors and compiles it into one clean and clear picture for a pilot to drive their decision-making. By taking this workload from a traditional pilot, it instead enables them to focus on the broader perspective of the tactical and even strategic picture as it unfolds around them. Not to spoil the outcome of the competition, but fortunately, the world was spared from the timeline where Western nations are buying and flying F-32s. No doubt hanging their heads in shame, Boeing quietly retired the avionics flying laboratory and transferred it to Midwest Aircraft, where it was scrapped at some point between 2004 and 2006. Rather than being scrapped outright, however, the decision was made to keep the cockpit intact, which takes us to today. Now, for the low price of $5,500, you can, or could have been, if it wasn't removed while I was away at Oshkosh, the proud owner of an obscure piece of airline, Area 51, and Joint Strike Fighter history. Missing most of the cockpit hardware and anything forward of the radome bulkhead, the partial cockpit was briefly for sale. The seller stated that you can convert the aircraft into a home simulator, or perhaps a neat bar for the poolside. Ironically, in 2004, after Lockheed Martin had won the Joint Strike Fighter competition, they converted their own Boeing 737, tail number November 35 Lima X-Ray, into a flying laboratory to test and evaluate systems that would be incorporated into the production F-35 Lightning II, which would have its first flight in 2006. The Lockheed testbed would be updated in 2007 with newer technologies for the F-35, which would become the fleet standard in the early 2010s. November 35 Lima X-Ray has since fallen off the literal and metaphorical radar, perhaps in storage, or itself being scrapped as the development program for F-35 winds down. In any case, it may be that in a few years' time, we see its cockpit on the aviation listings of Craigslist. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Aerospace Artifacts. I hope you enjoyed the content, as it's a ton of fun for me to create. If you did, be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Got a tip or a lead on something interesting? Drop a comment below. Be sure to stay tuned for the next episode. You could say I feel pressured into making it good.